So now we have Harvey Diamond. Harvey Diamond is a welcome guest to our Autism Hope Summit today. He's the health and fitness advocate that many of you know about, a New York Times #1 best-selling author who has been studying and teaching principles of healthful living for over 45 years. He's helped literally millions of people worldwide, not only to dramatically improve their health, but also to overcome serious catastrophic disease. And those of you who are familiar with Harvey know about his book, Fit for Life. Those who may not know Harvey's name probably have heard of the book, Fit for Life. It has sold nearly 14 million copies in 35 languages and are read in over 80 countries. It held the #1 position in the New York Times bestseller list for an unprecedented 40 weeks, and it was the fastest-selling book of its kind in history. Harvey has had multiple appearances on Oprah Winfrey, Larry King, Nightline with Ted Koppel, Live with Regis Philbin, Good Morning America, The Today Show, and many others. And in a stunning validation of his healing methods, Harvey has triumphed over a devastating condition called peripheral neuropathy, brought on by Agent Orange poisoning while serving in Vietnam. But thanks to his considerable understanding of the human body and its proper care, he is one of the longest known survivors of this condition. So, Harvey, it's a true pleasure to talk to you this morning.
Thank you so much, Tom. It's very kind of you to have me on the show and to say all those kind things about me. You can't see it, but I'm blushing.
Yeah. Well, there's so much more I could say, Harvey. You and I go back probably 20-plus years to the start of Enzymedica, before the start of Enzymedica, and that was nearly 19 years ago, if you can believe it.
Unbelievable that that many years already.
Yeah, it's crazy. And, of course, you are serving in an advisory capacity to Autism Hope Alliance, which we greatly appreciate as well. So thank you for that.
My pleasure.
Our topic today is care for the caregiver, or self-care is not selfish. And the reason we're talking about this, of course, is most of our families find themselves in a situation where they're providing full-time care. Often, it's really the responsibility of one caregiver, a mother or a father. There's a lot of single family situations here, single parent situations here, where all of the responsibility falls on one parent, though a second parent may be available to help from time to time. But it's an enormous task, as I know you are aware. Depending on the severity of the autism, and it's, because it's a spectrum disorder, some parents have greater challenges than others, but nonetheless, it's certainly appropriate that we talk about how the caregiver can take care of themselves in order to give the best care to their loved one. And so, just off the bat, Harvey, I mean, when you think of an individual who's providing care, where does your mind go in the way of what they should be addressing so as to continually have the energy and the stamina and the will to provide care for others?
Well, first I would say that, to be perfectly honest with you here, not to make light of it in any way, shape, or form, but the very idea that the caregiver who's taking on such a challenge would actually feel some kind of guilt about taking care of him or herself, to me, that is astounding. That is absolutely amazing, because obviously a child dealing with autism needs someone to help on the top of their game, quite frankly. And to feel any kind of guilt that they're actually taking care of themselves so they'll be in a better position to help those individuals, that does not ring true with me. I mean, that should be actually priority #1, or at least tied as #1 with taking care of the child. And then you've got to take care of yourself, because how else is the child going to receive top quality care? So, obviously, I'm not a psychiatrist or anything like that. I'm not going to change anything in a few moments, but I just want to say to anyone listening who does harbor such feelings, that is wasted effort, that is wasted energy, and that is in no way helping the overall situation. What actually helps the situation is taking care of oneself. That is a wise decision, a smart decision. Now, obviously, for me, having written Fit for Life and studying diet and health for nearly a half century, quite frankly, to me, obviously, one of the most important places one has to begin is with the foods that they're eating. And, listen, I'm going to be the very first one that will acknowledge that this information that I basically share with people, it's not for everyone, but I will say this, it will only be of interest to those of you who eat. So, having said that, and Tom, you were kind enough to mention that I have been studying this for over 45 years, in fact, 47 years. And the thing is, I don't have all the answers, and I don't know what to do for every single person, because this is too much of a sophisticated subject, an awesome subject, for anyone to have all the answers of what is the best thing to do for each individual. However, I will say this. You really can't study the same subject for 47 years with such enthusiasm as I and not pick up a few tidbits here and there.
Sure, absolutely.
You're going to learn a few things. And obviously, I've had the good pleasure of having an astounding number of people, millions of people, feel better because of the information that I have disseminated to them. Now, obviously, when it comes to food, I mean, we live and we have prerequisites to stay alive, and the three main prerequisites that we all have to fulfill is air, water, and food. I mean, that's not difficult to understand. Everybody knows that. And, it's easier to fall off a log, or it's just as easy to fall off a log than it is to find two people who agree about what to eat, when to eat, and how to eat, and all that. I mean, there is so much disagreement among all the so-called experts, myself included. I'm in there. I mean, people listen to me and then they listen to someone else. But I will tell you this. There is one area where everybody agrees. There is total unanimity. Everybody across the board, no matter what their specific interests are, they agree 100%, and that is that we as human beings must eat food on a regular basis, on a daily basis. Now, except for a few breatharians sprinkled throughout the world, everyone across the board agrees we have to eat. If you stop eating, you're going to perish. It may take 2 months. It may take even 3 months. There are instances of people staying alive so long. But the fact is you have to eat or you're going to perish. And we, each one of us, as individuals, is going to consume in our lifetime approximately 70 tons of food. Now, that is, even when I say that, and I've said it over and over to so many people, it still astonishes me when you think about the fact that 70 tons of food is going to pass through your body. Your body is going to have to extract what it needs and get rid of the rest. And obviously, getting rid of the rest is quite important, because it doesn't take much of 70 tons to stay in your body for you to be feeling poorly or put on weight or not feel good. And that's just how it is.
Sure.
So when it comes to talking about this subject, rather than being adamant to people and telling them, you must do this and you must not do that, I have a goal in my mind when I talk to people, and that goal is to appeal to the listeners' common sense. Common sense has to rule and will rule. That is the one thing that is ours. Our God-given common sense will help us more than you know if we will just give it the opportunity, we'll just give it the chance, because otherwise we're going to be led this way and that, and everybody's going to say something different, and the person is going to throw up his or her arms and just go, well, I don't know what to think. This person makes sense. That person makes sense. So what I do is constantly present individuals with information and let them make a decision based on their own common sense, their understanding of what they think will be the best for them. So,
excellent.
In that,
so let's start with some of that common sense. What's on that list, Harvey?
Well, let me just start right here, because in that regard, like, I have been asked over and over on numerous shows, like you mentioned, on whether it's Oprah or Regis or Larry King or whatever it is, many times I've been asked, well, Harvey, you've studied this subject for so long. If there was one thing, what is the single most important thing that you feel like you've learned? That okay, we understand you don't know everything, but there must be something that really hits a chord with you and you feel most strongly about that. So that's what I want to discuss with people listening right now, so they have a good grasp of this aspect of taking care of themselves, and they will know what to do to take care of not only themselves, which is job number one, but taking care of that child who may be dealing with an autistic situation. Now, if someone were to approach you and ask you this question, and you don't know anything about diet or health or physiology, or you just don't know anything about the subject, and somebody were to ask you this question, what do you think personally, as a human being living on this planet, what do you think would be better for your body, to eat food that's alive or to eat food that's dead? Now, you may be saying, this is a setup for a punchline or a joke, which it is not. And people might be saying right now, well, it's a ridiculous question. Of course, it would make more sense to eat living food than it would to eat dead food. But this is the area in which I wish to focus in on, because not only is it appealing to your common sense to say, well, obviously I want to eat living food if I want to stay alive, but the first question is, well, what do you mean a living food or a dead food? What makes a food alive and what makes a food dead? Excellent question. And that is what we need to take into consideration. And I'm not going to be complicated here so people will know exactly what I'm talking about, because we have to eat food. We are living beings on a living planet. We have to eat to stay alive. It only makes good common sense to eat food that's alive. So to explain this to you, I just want to briefly discuss a subject that I know is near and dear to your heart, Tom.
Yeah.
And everybody has heard the word. The word is enzymes, and I'm not going to get involved here, and you're not going to say, well, I don't know what he's talking about. I'm going to keep this very, very simple. We live on a planet where, just as an aside, the Hubble telescope has gone out into space and taken pictures trillions of miles from here, thousands and thousands of pictures. And you know what have never taken a picture of that makes this planet unique? Life. These pictures taken trillions of miles from here, there is not a single blade of grass that has ever been brought. And in fact, if the Hubble telescope should ever take a picture of a blade of grass, it would be the greatest discovery humankind has ever made. But here we are living on a planet that life is bursting at every turn, no matter where you go. It could be extremely hot or extremely cold or in between. There is life. There is life everywhere. It is what makes the planet Earth unique in our solar system. In fact, in all heavenly bodies that is known to us, there's life on this planet and this planet alone. And let me tell you, this is not an exaggeration when I say the reason there is life on this planet, the reason we have life in our bodies, is because of these little dynamos called enzymes. Enzymes are literally in every living thing. It doesn't matter what it is. Every human, every plant, everything that exists because there is such a thing as enzymes. In fact, and again, this is not an exaggeration, if enzymes should be removed from the equation, the planet Earth would then resemble the moon or Mars. There would be no life. There is life on this planet because of enzymes. And everything that you do, I don't care what it is, great and small, whether it's digesting food or running or walking or talking or standing up or rolling over in your sleep, whatever it is, enzymes are involved. Enzymes are referred to as the body's labor force because absolutely every last thing, right down to the passage of blood through your blood vessels, seeing, hearing me right now, being able to talk, none of it would be possible without enzymes. Now, we come to the subject of alive or dead. So since enzymes obviously are important, and without them we would perish, what is the death knell for enzymes? Well, the death knell is heat. Heat. 118 degrees and enzymes are obliterated. And I don't mean they're degraded or they're weakened. I mean they are completely and totally obliterated so they no longer exist. In other words, let me just get right to it here. When you eat food, regardless of what that food is, either that food has the enzymes in it that was created when it was grown, or the enzymes have been destroyed because the food has been subjected to heat. Heat so intense that all of the enzymes were removed, and what was left is just the empty food that the body then is taken in and expected to live off of. And that is exactly what I mean. When we eat food where the enzymes are still intact, that is called a living food. When we eat food that has had the enzymes destroyed by heat, that is a dead food. Now, here is an interesting fact that will shock you to no end, as it still shocks me, even though I have been dealing with it for decades. The vast majority of people in this country and around the world, quite frankly, their diet consists of approximately 10 or maybe, if it's good, 15% of living food. 10 to 15%, which means 85 or 90% of what they consume is dead. And I mean dead. All the things that we eat food to obtain, the vitamins and the minerals, and of course the enzymes, the phytonutrients, the antioxidants, every single thing that we need from food that we know we have to have are all destroyed if the food is heated over 118 degrees. And as you know, to heat food, it's far higher than 118 degrees. I mean, just think of something you cook in the oven, it's put it on 350. I mean, it's all destroyed. So, and and before I go on, I don't want people to be thinking, oh, great, Tom has brought us some guy to tell us that if we don't eat all raw living food, we're going to perish. That is not what I'm about. That is not why I'm here. I don't eat only food that is totally living, and that's just all there is to it. Now, of course, the predominance of what I eat is living food that has enzymes intact, but not all, and that's not what I'm asking you as the listener to do for yourself. That is not realistic to say all of a sudden, if you're eating a diet that is 10 or 15% living, to just turn that around all of a sudden. But like I said, the single most important thing I've ever learned in almost 50 years of studying this subject is that if you insist on consuming a diet that is approximately 10 to 15% living and the rest dead, you might just as well get down on your knees and beg the powers that be to make you sick. And let me tell you something, that prayer is going to be answered. There is no question about that.
That sounds like a certainty.
It's an absolute certainty. It is the reason why we suffer with so many ailments in this country. Listen, think of this, and I know there are parents listening right now who have children who obviously is the most dear thing in their life. And I'm not saying that anyone in particular has this as the example, but just listen to this example that I'm going to give you. There are some people whose children, throughout the day, they don't even get 10 to 15%. There are some children that barely even get 5% living food. I mean, think of it. They wake up in the morning and they have a bowl of cereal, and hopefully it's not some abomination like Fruit Loops or Lucky Charms or some other grotesque thing that's saturated with chemicals and additives and red dye number 40 and all these other things. And poured over it is milk that has been pasteurized, meaning heated, meaning everything of value is gone, and that's poured over the cereal, and that's what the child has, or the child has a Pop-Tart or something else like that. And then it's off to school, and if they're eating school lunches, well, that means hamburgers or hot dogs, tacos, lasagna, chili, maybe a bag of potato chips, another thing of milk that's been pasteurized, and that's their lunch. Then as a snack, they might have a bag of potato chips or a Snickers bar or a soda even. And then come dinner time when they get home, it's a bucket of chicken or it's macaroni and cheese. And the only living food that poor dear child had all day long was maybe a little slice of tomato on their hamburger. And some of them reach in and take that out. Yeah. And now, so there might be people listening right now going, oh my God, this person just described my child's diet. And I'm telling you that on a diet such as that, where the living body is craving, pleading for some living food, and it's not given hardly any. It's given 5% maybe, on a good day maybe 10%, but 80 or 90% of what they are eating is dead food, providing no nourishment for the body. And that is day in and day out for years and years on end. That does not work. It cannot be continued, and an effort has to be made. And I'm not saying, again, I want to make this point. I'm not saying to you as a caregiver that you have to alter what you're eating and all of a sudden start eating 70 or 80% living food. That's not realistic. But let me ask you this question. And again, your common sense can answer it. Let me just ask you this question, and let me see if you think it's a fair question for me to ask. Since you know that you are a living being, living on a living planet, and you have to eat food to stay alive, does it not seem reasonable to you to eat half the food you eat, be living, and the other half not living? The half of it that you like to eat, spaghetti and meatballs and garlic bread and chicken and just chips and sandwiches and all these other things that has had all the things of vitality removed from it. But the other half of what you eat are fruits and fruit salads and smoothies and salads and raw nuts and seeds and those type of things. I want to tell you something that I have seen from experience over the years working with people, that there are folks that hear what I'm saying and it hits them like a 2x4 across the side of the head when they realize that they're not giving their bodies enough living food, that they think, oh my God, well, yeah, it's reasonable that at least half of what I eat should be living. And I want to tell you something. If you are one of the people who are only getting 10 or 15% living food and the rest dead food, if you were just able to up the amount of living food you consume just to 50%, just half and half, just half is living, half is not, just doing that, the level of health of improvement that you would reap is so overwhelming, it can hardly even be believed. It's absolutely astounding because your body is craving that living food. It wants it. It needs it to survive. If all of a sudden more living food is included into the diet, up to the point of, say, 50%, like I said, and the other 50% is not, you are going to experience immeasurable improvement. Let's remember one thing. I said earlier that each and every one of us is going to eat 70 tons of food. 70 tons of food will pass through our bodies. I'm going to tell you something that if you don't already know it, and it's an obvious thing, but if it's not pointed out to you, you just don't realize it. You're not going to even believe what I'm going to tell you right now. It's going to astound you, and that is this. Nothing is more important for you as a caregiver to have energy. I mean, to not be tired and passing out and all logy, you got to have energy. Well, that 70 tons of food that is passing through your body, every single thing you do requires energy. I mean, I don't care what it is. I don't care if it's blinking your eyes or running a marathon. Everything requires energy. Well, guess what activity of the body requires not only more energy than any other activity, but requires more energy than everything you will do your entire life added together will not equal the amount of energy required by the digestion and assimilation of that 70 tons of food. Isn't that extraordinary? Isn't that amazing?
Yeah.
Most people, when they hear that, they're dumbfounded to realize that the energy, the thing that is so precious to them, so dear, that they need to be able to not only help themselves but help their child, that energy is just being squandered unnecessarily on foods that require so much energy to deal with because it doesn't have the enzymes in it. It doesn't have all the nutrients in it. So the body has to put out all this, expend all of this energy. Now, what if you, without really throwing your life into turmoil, without going on some diet that is deprivational and takes away the joy out of eating, but what if you were able to eat in such a manner that you would use less energy for the digestive process, and the digestive process would function more efficiently? I mean, you have to be thinking, oh, wow, that has got to be the greatest thing ever. If I could actually save energy, have my digestion work better, have less digestive difficulties, and have more energy, that is what should be the goal of every person listening. That has been my goal for the last 50 years, and that is the way I comport myself because, as Tom mentioned, I was exposed to Agent Orange. I'm dealing with a devastating physical limitation of my body. I have to be ultra careful of what goes into my body or I am going to be laid low. So I have to see to it that I have the optimum amount of energy to be used to heal my body. And that's what will happen with you. The things that you're dealing with, the difficulties, the pain, the discomfort, the lack of energy, all of those things will fall by the wayside because once you start to comport yourself dietetically in such a way where you add to your body more living food, you use less energy, and guess what the intelligent, incredibly intelligent, living body does with that freed up energy that it gleans from digestion? It automatically uses it for the healing process. Wow, what a beautiful thing. Now, before I say, okay, Tom, what's next? Let me just make one point to you to bring home this point that I'm making so that you really have a grasp and understanding of just how important it is for living food to be consumed on a regular basis. Look at the rest of the natural world. Look at all of the animals in nature. All of the animals, every single animal you've ever seen, large and small, look at them. And it's the same for them. They need also air, water, and food, and must eat a certain amount of food in order to survive. Well, we have to ask the question, why don't animals in nature suffer from the ailments that we as human beings suffer from on such a regular basis? It's because animals in nature only eat living food. They never eat food that's not living. And you might be saying, well, lions eat dead food because, they'll take down a wildebeest and it's dead. If you watch these nature shows, you can see that, first of all, lions do take down a wildebeest or a zebra, but, they're already eating that animal while it's still kicking its legs sometimes. It's still alive. And you'll also notice that the lion, this is going to sound a little gory, but this is what happens. The lions open up these animals' bodies and they immediately eat the inside organs that have all the plant life in it. Now, you'll notice that animals such as lions, tigers, leopards, animals that eat other animals only eat animals that eat vegetation. In other words, animals that eat animals don't eat other animals that eat animals, if you understand what I'm saying. In other words, the lions don't eat tigers. Bears don't eat wolves. They eat animals that have plant life in it. They eat living food. Lions are just too dim-witted to figure out how to get a cook stove and cook the zebra up so it eats it raw. Every animal eats only living food. Now, they don't suffer from the diseases and the difficulties that we have. And, somebody might be saying right now to their friend, oh, yeah, you should see my neighbor's dog. That dog has arthritis, diabetes, can barely walk, and is overweight. Yeah, that actually makes my point. Because the animals that we have as pets, or we have as zoos, or living on ranches or farms, they come into contact with human beings. Human beings feed them foods that have been devitalized and all enzymes removed from their food, and then they suffer from the same difficulties that we as human beings suffer from. It's just amazing if you look at it. I'm talking about the animals in nature who have no interference from human beings. These animals do not have ailments. They do not get sick. They don't even have colds. They don't have headaches. They don't have AIDS. They don't have cancer and heart disease. It doesn't happen in the natural world. And in the natural world, animals eat 100% of their diet is raw living food. 100%. We, as human beings, are supposedly God's finest creation. Just ask anybody. We'll be happy to tell you that. We're the ones eating only 5 or 10%. Listen, just to end this up, let me tell you something. The United States happens to spend more money on health care than any other nation on earth. In fact, if you take the next 6 nations, Russia, China, Italy, France, and add them together, it still will not equal the amount of money spent on health care as the United States. We're talking about over $3 trillion a year. Now, if we were making that expenditure of over $3 trillion a year, and we were experiencing the highest level of health throughout the world, well, then I guess it would be worth it. But the thing is this, not only do we spend more money than all the other nations that I mentioned, but we lead the world in what is called the degenerative diseases of affluences: heart disease, cancer, diabetes, osteoporosis, and of course, obesity. We lead the world. We're number 1 in all of those categories. This is astounding. We spend more money on health care, and yet we lead the world in ill health. What is wrong there? I'm going to tell you point blank. There is a plot afoot. And the plot is designed to keep you overfed and undernourished. And part of that plot, even though it's accidental and it's not done intentionally, part of that plot is we are not eating a sufficient amount of living food. And I used a lot of time and a lot of words to explain it, but I hope you have in your mind the idea that I am trying to get across to you, that more living food has, has to play a role in your diet.
Thank you, Harvey. That was extremely helpful. I've got a couple questions for you.
Sure.
With regard to what you stated. You talked about at one point the consumption of cooked, processed food, food that is not living, as having no nutritional value. Could you clarify that? I mean, the reason I ask is this. Even the worst of the worst, what we can find on the shelves in our typical grocery store, loaded with sugar and preservatives and dyes, they're often fortified with vitamins and minerals, and even milk, of course, is fortified. And the manufacturers of these products, make the claim that they're good for you, because of this fortification, that there is some nutritional value, and all you have to do, of course, to determine its value, nutritionally speaking, is turn over the box and look at the nutritional supplement facts box. And so they label it with nutritional value. So could you clarify what you mean when you say no nutritional value?
Well, first of all, Tom, I know that I am going to sound incredibly cynical here with what I'm going to say, but I just can't help it. I'm just trying, I can't help it.
That's okay.
We have to learn something new and do something new, or we're going to continue on the road that we've been on. There's an old saying that, if you keep heading in the same direction you are right now, you're going to wind up where you're going. Yeah. And that has to do with what you're saying. The plain fact is I'm serious when I say that there is an effort, not a conscious effort, but there is an effort made to keep people overfed and undernourished. And just because they can put on a box, this has fortification with certain vitamins and minerals, that is an absolute joke. Then, first of all, the vitamins that they might be fortifying the food with, they no more resemble the vitamins that you would find working in concert with the other elements of food and going into the body and winding up in the cells where they belong, where they can only do good. These are the worst of the worst. It's a little spray of who knows where from coal tar products where they get a lot of these vitamins and minerals. When I say that these foods are devoid of nutrition, it just goes to show you the remarkable ability of the living body to take something like that you have described and actually do something with it and help the body stay alive. I mean, I wonder how many people right now, Tom, have ever given their child something which is you can get in any supermarket, and they're called Lunchables. Are you familiar with Lunchables?
Sure. Yeah, a little packet.
It says exactly what you're saying. Fortified with this vitamin and that vitamin, and good for you, and good for you. Well, the next time that you're ever in the market, I want you to go over to where they sell Lunchables, turn it to the side, and I want you to look at the panel of ingredients. This is one of the most remarkable looking things I've ever seen. The list of ingredients is as long as your arm in little teeny weeny print. You have to bring your reading glasses or a magnifying glass. There are dozens and dozens and dozens of additives. They're all made from chemicals. There's no food in a Lunchable. There's nothing in a Lunchable that is going to benefit the child. They're going to eat. The living body is going to go, oh, no, this is all I have to work with. And somehow, some way, it has to glean something out of that and utilize it in the body. But over 95% even more than like 98% of it, the body just has to work and work hard to get rid of it. And there goes your precious energy working to get rid of it. Though any time that you see on a package where it says fortified with vitamins, just know that the vitamins that they're talking about are not any way, shape, or form able to be compared to the vitamins that you would find in a living food that hasn't been processed and hasn't been heated. And also, by the way, you know that heat, as I said earlier, destroys everything alive. Just think of this. What would happen if you were to get into a bathtub and had water that, let's just say the temperature was, let's just say 200 degrees, and you were to climb in? Do you know what would happen? You would be dead before you let out the first scream. That's what would happen. If you, as a human being, climbed into a tub of water, it's 200 degrees. Well, what do you think happens to these precious vitamins and other nutrients when it's subjected to heat even more intense than 200 degrees? They're wiped out. They're obliterated. But what they say on the label tricks you into thinking, oh, well, this has all the vitamins I need. All I have to do is eat this and get the vitamins. And you're not getting any. You're not getting anything. What you're getting is something that is in your stomach that your body then has to go, oh, I have to somehow get rid of this, and hopefully the next time they eat, it will be something good. Hey, listen, I want to tell you something. Do you know that every single year, one of the pharmaceutical industry's biggest sellers, every year, the ones that make them the most amount of money, do you know that they're drugs for some type of stomach or digestive disorder, which are extensive to say the least? Stomach aches, gas, bloating, heartburn, gastritis, indigestion, acid reflux disease, constipation, irritable bowel syndrome, colitis, Crohn's. Good grief. That is some list. Oh my God, how come there are so many digestive difficulties? Well, what we have to ask ourselves, Tom, is why, after doing something as normal, natural, and necessary to life as eating, do millions of people have to run straight to the medicine cabinet and bombard their body with drugs? It's because they have been suckered into eating foods such that you have described that have them convinced, oh, this is a good food. It's been fortified. It has everything you need. Meantime, it doesn't have anything you need. All it has is something that the body has to work double time and overtime to get rid of.
That's very helpful. I think that answers a lot of the questions, no doubt, the listeners have. And with regard to transitioning, so you're saying that the average American eats likely between 10 and 15% raw food or living food. Your goal, your recommendation is to work up to 50-50, as kind of a happy medium. Obviously, we would do far better if the percentage of living food was higher, but that's a reasonable recommendation. Yeah. How do you suggest the average caregiver, or for that matter, their child, how do we transition into that? Do you have any advice on moving from 10 to 50%?
Well, let me tell you the single most important aspect of my recommendations in terms of eating. And I know that some of you are going to be familiar with Fit for Life. There are just too many millions of people who read the book for nobody listening right now to not have any awareness of it. And, one of the things I'm noted for is recommending a certain food that for literally millions of people, I have to tell you, this one food has been more grossly misunderstood and more unfairly maligned than any other food, and that food is fruit. I am the guy known for getting people to eat more fruit. There is so much misinformation about fruit that it can hardly even be believed. Now, I know that we don't have all that much time, so I'm just going to come out and tell the people what they can do that will not only make them feel immensely better, but it will dramatically increase the amount of living food they eat, and it's this. What I'm known for, what I'm called, is the guy who talks about fruit till noon. He's the fruit till noon guy. I want to tell you something, and you can listen to this, and I'm not making this up, and you can do with it as you wish. Here's the important thing you have to understand. Let me very, very briefly describe to you what are called the body cycles. We've heard that term before. I know you have, Tom. The body cycles, or what are called the circadian rhythms. And it's very common. It's very, very obvious. I mean, you don't have to have a class in physiology to understand it. Here's how simple it is. You know, we eat food, we extract what we need from that food, and we get rid of the rest. That's it. There are 3 cycles associated with that, and here they are. The 3 cycles is this. The first cycle is we eat food. It's called the appropriation cycle. It goes from 12 noon to 8 p.m. In other words, in that 8-hour period, the body is most equipped and most ready to deal with food. It's called the appropriation cycle. It's taking in food from 12 to 8. And then the body extracts what it needs from that food. That's called the assimilation cycle. That picks up at 8 p.m. and goes to 4 a.m. in the morning. In other words, most of the hours while you're asleep, your body is busy at work extracting what it needs from that food. And then the third cycle is what is called the elimination cycle. We have to get rid of the rest. It goes from 4 a.m. to 12 noon. Okay, so you have the entire 24 hours. It's just taken up with these straightforward, simple 3 cycles. We take in food, extract what we need, get rid of the rest. Now, that cycle called the elimination cycle, where we get rid of the rest, that is the answer to feeling better, to having more energy, to living longer, to not having pain, to not getting sick. It's getting that waste. Remember, you're going to eat 70 tons of food. It's going to pass through your body. That elimination cycle that the body goes through from 4 a.m. in the morning until 12 noon, those are the 8 hours that the body is most heightened, most aggressively eliminating the waste from our body that we have to get rid of, from the bowels, the lungs, and the skin. Now, here's my suggestion. Do you remember that I told you that the one function of the body that requires more energy than all other activities combined is digestion? If you wake up in the morning, say at 7 or 8 o'clock, you are smack in the middle at the height of the elimination cycle. This cycle that is so important for you to live a long, healthy, pain-free life, it's right in the middle. For you to go in the kitchen at 7 or 8 in the morning and eat a nice big breakfast, or even a breakfast of just a bowl of cereal and a piece of toast, or a bowl of oatmeal, or just a couple of eggs and a piece of toast, or whatever it is, those are foods that require immense digestive energy from the stomach, and it puts the brakes on the elimination cycle. There are people listening to me right this moment who never in their entire lives, they could be 30 or 40 or 50 or 60 years old, and they have never once, not one day of their life, has their elimination cycle that goes from 4 a.m. to 12 noon been allowed to operate unfettered. So, here is my suggestion to you, and I have made this suggestion more times than I can recount, to millions upon millions of people in over 80 countries around the world, and the results have been absolutely overwhelming. Here is my suggestion to you. In fact, I would like for you to make a little experiment with yourself. It's just a little test you can run on yourself, and you can see exactly what will happen. I want you to take a 2-week period. And during this 2 weeks, the only change I would ask for you to make, the only change, is when you wake up in the morning and until 12 noon, the only thing you consume is fresh fruit or fresh fruit juice. And when I say fresh fruit juice, I don't mean orange juice that's been pasteurized, because that's just pure acid and will poison you and make you sick. I mean fresh. You have to squeeze it yourself or have someone squeeze it for you. But from the time you wake up until 12 noon, either have pieces of fruit, make a fruit smoothie, have a fruit salad, and if you want more every half hour because you're hungry, have more. It's okay. You cannot overdo it, because I'm going to tell you something right now that you likely don't know, and it is an astounding thing. Fruit is the one and only food in the human diet that does not digest in the stomach. Understand what I just said. No other food in the human diet does not digest in the stomach except fruit. Fruit passes through the stomach and is broken down in the intestines. In other words, it requires no energy from the body, and it goes into the intestines and it releases all of the nutrients that we are eating the fruit and the food for. So my suggestion to you is exactly that. For 2 weeks, you wake up in the morning, until noon, nothing passes your lips if it's not fresh fruit, fruit juice, fruit smoothie, or fruit salads, as much as you like. It doesn't matter. You cannot overdo it, because it's not being spoiled or heated. And that's why I always tell people, if you eat fruit, you don't eat it as a dessert, because fruit wants to go into the intestines. You don't eat a meal and then eat fruit, because the fruit is stuck in the stomach where it causes problems. Then we say, oh, you know what? I can't eat melon. I can't eat strawberries. They give me a stomach ache. They give you a stomach ache because it was on top of a roast beef sandwich. You have the fruit first. It passes right through the stomach into the intestines. I want you to do this for 2 weeks. Certainly you have 2 weeks. I mean, you're interested enough in your own health and well-being that you're even on this call right now and you're listening to this information. You certainly have 2 weeks to find out something that might have immense effect on your health and well-being. And at the end of that 2 weeks, go back and wake up in the morning and have yourself a nice breakfast. And what I would suggest is that you work it out to where that 15th day is on a weekend, because you're going to need to be home so you can rest.
Okay. Thank you. And a quick question about that. Would there be, would the same value occur? So I understand what you're recommending, and it makes perfect sense to me. But what about fasting before noon? Is there any drawbacks or benefits if a person eats nothing before noon? Is there any mechanisms in the body that make it less effective if you simply fast before noon, or does it have a similar value?
There is no drawback whatsoever, not one. And there are some people, they don't like to have anything in the morning, except a glass of water. There's certainly nothing wrong with having a glass of water, but you do have to stay hydrated. And I absolutely know people that have nothing. I mean, from the time they wake up until 12 noon, the only thing that goes into their body is a glass of water or a couple of glasses of water. So, no, there is no difficulty in doing that whatsoever. The only thing you want to avoid is having any cooked food. That's the death knell. That's what slams the brakes on the elimination cycle and starts sucking up that vital energy that the body needs. So either have nothing, just a glass of water, or have fruit or fruit juice, as little or as much as you like, but make it all the way till noon. And just do that for 2 weeks. Don't make any other changes. And at the end of the 2 weeks, you will see how you feel.
Now I know.
Tom, I have to make one thing. Please, I have to make this one point, just to be fair. And this is only a possibility. People who do this, who have never done it before and are accustomed to having great big breakfasts, on occasion, not always, not by any means, but on occasion, people will start to feel poorly. They'll have their head will hurt, or they'll some difficulty they've had in the past will become more pronounced. And the only thing that you have to understand is that the body recognizes that it all of a sudden has all this freed up energy, and it's going to try as desperately as it can to get rid of as much waste as it possibly can until it acclimates itself. So you might feel poorly at first, only because the body is working hard to do what it can for overall health and well-being. Do not make the mistake of saying, oh, well, this doesn't work. I started having just fruit and I got a headache. I'm going to go back to eating pancakes with sausage. You understand? So see it through. It's not going to happen to everybody. It really isn't. But for those few for whom it will happen, don't be alarmed. Just know this is your body at work. Sorry I interrupted you, but that was an important point.
I appreciate that. That's a valid point. Now, there's people out there that are thinking, okay, I can probably do that. 2 weeks is certainly a reasonable recommendation, but my coffee, how in the world?
Oh man, that is so funny because it's absolute. I'm sorry for laughing, but it will astound you how many people ask that very thing. Wait a minute, I like to drink coffee. Okay, it's okay. Let me say this: if you're a coffee enthusiast and you want to have your cup of coffee, obviously it's not something that is going to benefit the body. It's very acidic forming. I'm just going to be honest with you here. I don't want to badmouth it because people that have to have that cup of coffee, I mean, I know they have to have it, but here is my recommendation to you. If you're one of those people that have to have the coffee, the first thing that should enter into your body should be something living, should be something alive. Put it off. Don't have it first. Don't wake up in the morning and have it be the very first thing you do to your body is give it something that is not benefiting the body health-wise in any way, shape, or form. Let the first thing be something alive. Let it be a piece of fruit. Let it be some fresh squeezed orange juice. If you can go till 9 o'clock or 10 o'clock or even 11, well, do it. Go as far as you can. Then have your cup of coffee. That's all. And there's just no other way around it. But I will tell you this. People that take me up on my recommendation to do this thing for 2 weeks, they find even themselves that they have less of a craving for coffee. Also, I don't work for this company or anything. It's just there's a product that I know of, and I think you already know about this, Tom. It's called Ticino. Are you familiar with Ticino?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, well, Ticino, it's a caffeine-free organic herbal coffee blend, and it's herbs and nuts and chicory root and grains and everything. I want to tell you something. I know people that are coffee junkies, and this stuff, Ticino, it looks and tastes and brews exactly like coffee without any of the negative side effects, and it's not acidic in the body. There are coffee aficionados who rave about Ticino. They absolutely buy more than they could possibly use because they're fearful that the product's not going to be available anymore. They said it has this full-bodied. I'm not a coffee drinker, so I don't know. But people who have told me that this is an alternative that really delivers. So for those people out there who want to make a change, just check out Ticino. It's spelled Teeccino. You'd think I work for the company or something, but I don't.
That's good advice. I'm sure that we have listeners that are thinking about that. Two more questions. We're almost out of time here.
Okay.
One is, and I understand everything up to this moment is about restoring energy to the body, giving the body an opportunity to work at its in its optimal way, so that we can replenish the body and heal the body and all those good things. Makes perfect sense. As you began our discussion, You said that it had to make sense, and it clearly does. I don't think anybody's going to find any fault with what's been said. The question I have is what relationship does this dietary recommendation have with regard to an individual handling stress and anxiety? So, back to the caregiver. Naturally, the caregiver needs to be in good health in order to properly care, at least we could say, give it their best, to their child who needs them at their best. Is there any benefit that can be measured with regard to how that same parent under this type of diet would be able to handle anxiety and stress, because they're under an enormous amount of it? And then you might add to that answer, is there any other recommendations you have that would help relieve some stress and anxiety?
Well, I know this is going to sound like, well, good grief, you're just telling me that if I improve the way I eat, everything's going to get better. But I'm not being flippant here at all when I say that's actually a true statement. I don't know that I would be able to say this with as much conviction as I am saying it had I not had the experience of 3 or 4 decades of hearing people report back to me the effects that it has had on their lives. The fact is that, now I'm not going to say that a lot of stress isn't caused by emotional situations and family matters and things like that. Obviously, those are stressful type things. But you don't need to add to it the stress of the living body trying to stay alive on a diet that is not supplying it with the living food it needs. So what I have seen for so many years are a lot of people make these changes, and some of them do it more quickly than others, some do it more slowly than others. And that's fine, because as long as some progress is being made. But over and over again, people have told me, this is absolutely astounding. I'm more capable of dealing with the stress of life. Is it possible that improving my diet has made this difference? And I say, not only is it possible, it's absolutely unequivocally definite that that's what's happening, because the body starts to feel better and feel stronger and have more ability to withstand what it is confronted with, and it simply fares better. People who are dealing with stressful situations and don't know what to do, they will be astounded, I promise you, that if some of these changes that I am making appeal to you and you make them, you are going to find that the stresses that usually lay you low and knock you out and force you to maybe have a drink just to relax or something are not going to be required. And I'm not making this up, Tom. I'm telling you this is absolute and accurate. And I want to just say, I'm just going to make a little plug here, but it's only to help you. One of the books that I have written is called Fit for Life, A New Beginning. And all of these things that I'm talking to you about, I go into it in great detail and talk about these very things. So if you're interested, and the book is extremely inexpensive, it's like $6.50 or something for a paperback, and it's got a ton of information. And I would suggest that if you are interested and you do want to remove stress and remove pain and feel better and be able to have abundant energy so that you can be of service and of help to the people in your family who you love, you owe it to yourself to, in a relaxed way, go through the book and read it and look at all the recommendations and suggestions I make, because I just made 3 or 4 suggestions to you. That book has dozens.
And the name of that book again, Harvey?
It's called Fit for Life, A New Beginning. I've written 9 books, and several of them have Fit for Life in the title. But the one I'm talking about is Fit for Life, A New Beginning. It is in my opinion. What's that?
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, of all the books that I've written, my favorite is that one, because it has the most amount of information that people can glean. And quite frankly, I want to tell you that one of the greatest compliments I've ever received from people who read it say, wow, I love the way you write, man. It's like you're right there in my living room talking to me. I don't try to prove how much I know or talk to scientists or anything like that. I just talk to folks. It's just simple reading that makes common sense, and you can decide for yourself which things to use and which to not.
Excellent. And just as a side point, that book, Fit for Life, A New Beginning, is the book that we send to all parents who qualify for the Gift of Hope. So, as you know, the Gift of Hope is the way we help parents in need, those who have some financial difficulties. We send them a monthly supply of nutritional products. And in the educational materials, the very first thing we send them is that book. And so it's accessible through that program. One last question, Harvey.
Okay.
I know you are a proponent of this. The role of humor in life. I know you have a great sense of humor. We haven't tapped that today. We've had a couple of laughs, but if you could explain to parents who are obviously caregivers in this case, the importance of finding time each day to not just smile, but to laugh. Do you have anything that you could advise our caregivers?
It's so interesting that you should bring that up because, here's the thing. Last month, I celebrated my 72nd birthday. And, when I was a youngster, I was poisoned by Agent Orange. And quite frankly, it has really caused a lot of difficulties in my physical body. And I won't go into detail, but it's a challenge. And it's a potentially very stressful situation that I deal with on a daily basis. I mean, just as an example, I am literally 100% unable to lift a glass of water to my own mouth for a drink. I have to bend over and drink through a straw. So one of the things that I know that is beneficial, no matter what anyone is going through, is to laugh. Is to have good humor. And I love being funny. I mean, a lot of the stuff in my book, people will write and say, wow, you're like a comedian. I tell people if it weren't for the fact that I was studying and writing health books, I would be Jerry Seinfeld. I love humor. And what I do, and I'm telling you, this is an accurate thing. I don't go to bed at night unless sometime during the day I went and parked myself in front of the TV and watched something funny. I have old clips. I have old CDs of like the Seinfeld show and the Gary Sandling show, and I just have so much stuff. And I watch the Daily Show, and if it's funny, I need to watch it because you want to flood your body with these helpful endorphins, and they are released when you laugh. And everybody knows this. This is not some secret that Tom has brought up. Everybody knows that laughter is something that gives people strength, and it helps them and lifts them up. And I have taken it to heart to whereas there is no such thing as a day going by where I don't see to it that I watch something that makes me laugh and laugh out loud. And I do. I love things that are funny. I love telling jokes. I love watching people laugh, and I love laughing myself. And that to just become a regular part of taking care of yourself is to laugh. Every day, do something to get yourself to laugh. Believe me, you will see the results in a short order.
Excellent. So that really wraps it up for us, Harvey. We appreciate your time. Is there anything in conclusion that perhaps we didn't cover that you feel is essential at this point?
Well, anything we didn't cover, how many hours you have?
Well, we don't have any more time. But is there maybe anything that we just, that's really essential to this conversation that we haven't addressed?
Well, I'll tell you point blank. I'm just going to be honest with you here. The single most important thing that I've learned over 47 years of study is this idea that we have to supply our living body with living food. I don't want anybody to take lightly what I said. I don't want them to think that I just made this up or it's open for controversy. It's not. This is just too important. The plain fact is that there are forces out there that don't have your best health in mind. What they're most interested in is you opening up your purse or your wallet and buying their product, and they will say whatever they have to say. It's up to you as the individual to understand and know how extremely important it is for you to acknowledge that the living body needs living food. It's just that simple. The living body needs living food. If you can just add the amount of living food that you are presently taking in, you will reap the benefits of that, and it will become obvious. It won't be something you say, well, I think I feel a little better. It won't be like that. It will be, wow, am I ever glad that I started doing this because I feel better. That's the point that I want to get across. I'm sure that I did anyway, but I want to make doubly sure that people know that this idea of supplying our living body with living food, there is nothing of equal importance.
Thank you, Harvey. And we certainly appreciate your input on our advisory board. We appreciate your support of the Autism Hope Alliance, and especially the Gift of Hope. I know you were instrumental in getting us the books at a very discounted rate so we could distribute that at no cost to these families in need. So thank you for all that you do. We greatly appreciate it.
Well, you're very welcome, and it's my great pleasure to do it.
Thank you.